Action 10 News Update with Bob Kessling, Margie Eisen, and Bill Williams.
Good evening. Some of the stories in the news tonight. George McGovern comments on President Reagan's record, and there's some talk of higher taxes. An unsuccessful candidate for president in 1972, George McGovern, was here in Knoxville tonight speaking before an audience at the University of Tennessee. Before the speaking engagement, McGovern met with the media at a news conference. The Democrat says he does not have any immediate plans to run for public office again, but that may change in the future. He also had some comments to make about President Reagan's first year in office.
Well, I don't agree with the Reagan economic policy at all. I would love to be able to say that it would work. I don't see that. I don't see how it's possible to put together the formula he has and come out with anything other than very high deficits, very high interest rates, and a very high level of unemployment.
The governor is now serving as chairman for Americans for Common Sense. That's a liberal counterforce to the right wing. He's traveling around the country speaking to different universities and colleges. What a difference a year makes. With Treasury Secretary Donald Reagan in attendance, the Senate Finance Committee met today in Washington to discuss President Reagan's 1983 budget proposals, and only one member of that committee, Republican Bill Roth of Delaware, backed the president's plans. That's in sharp contrast to last year when all but one member of the panel supported the Reagan economic proposals. Leading congressional Republicans met with the president today to tell him they're considering a plan that would raise personal income taxes through a so-called surcharge to offset the federal deficit. Senate Majority Leader Howard Baker said he told the president a tax increase is one of the options Republicans are considering. Although he would not say what the president's reaction was, Baker said the president is not opposed to viable alternative economic proposals that would help reduce the huge projected deficit over $90 billion in fiscal 1983.
Surtax as the way to try to solve the deficit problem. What I have said, and will say again, is that I think we owe the duty and obligation to examine all of the alternatives and options that may be available to try to reduce that deficit. And a surtax is perhaps one, just like a number of other suggestions that have been discussed recently.
Sounds to me like you didn't think much of it.
Well, I'm not prepared to say that.
What did you tell him? What he thought of it, and you answered by saying just kind of one option, and we ought to examine them all.
Sam, there are some things I ought to tell you, some things I can tell you if I want to, and some things I'm never going to tell you.
Wayne Williams continued to insist today that he had nothing to do with any of the deaths of young blacks in Atlanta. Testifying at his murder trial, Williams angrily turned back attempts by prosecutors to shake his story. He's accused of 2 of the 28 deaths in the Atlanta area within a 22-month period. Bruce Hall has more.
During a full day's testimony, most of it intense cross-examination by the prosecution, a calm and collected Wayne Williams said more than a dozen earlier witnesses had lied or were mistaken when they linked him to Atlanta's young black murder victims. The 23-year-old music promoter also said the police stakeout officers at the Jackson Parkway Bridge lied when they said he stopped on the bridge, drove off slowly, then turned around at a liquor store parking lot at the end of the bridge. Williams said actually he drove to a nearby convenience store, made 3 phone calls, picked up some boxes, then crossed the bridge again before being stopped by the officers. Williams said he was in the area to find Cheryl Johnson, a possible talent recruit, but admitted he could never find her correct address or phone number. When prosecutor Jack Mallard hammered away at the inconsistencies, Williams said, "I'm on trial for my life, and I wouldn't be sitting up here lying." Mallard, can you think of a better reason for lying? Williams, I've told you all along, I am innocent, that I didn't kill anybody, and that's all there is to it. At one point, Prosecutor Mallard told Williams, "You have always learned to change with the situation," suggesting a dual personality, a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But before he could answer, defense attorney Binder objected to the question. Throughout the day, Williams told a story that differed from most prosecution witnesses, many of his own witnesses, and even what he had earlier told FBI agents. But despite the inconsistencies, he never lost his composure, even at the end of the day when Prosecutor Mallard asked pointed questions like, "How did it feel as you choked your victims to death?" As always, Williams replied, "I haven't killed anybody." Wayne Williams will be back on the stand tomorrow, and the defense is expected to rest when his testimony is completed. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Atlanta.